What's up, War Room? Welcome back. Joe and Connor here, fresh off recording a fiery 34-minute podcast. Going to answer some of your Discord
Good God.
now and use this to talk some of the bigger picture stuff. We were a little more like in the weeds on this season on the pod. This one we'll talk about some of the bigger picture candidates, a lot of the questions that filtered through. CR, how we feeling? Don't you love talking off-season stuff heading into week?
It's not even Halloween.
The season hasn't even started yet.
It's unfathomable. And for those that don't know, or even if you do, I mean, I do a draft podcast year round, and Trevor and I for NFL Stock Exchange are looking at each other week after week.
I can't.
And every time we go through the draft order, we're like, well, the Jet, we can't really talk about the Jets in a serious way here. Now the weeks are going by, and people are asking us to do our Fixing the Jets franchise, and we're not there yet, but it's absolutely ridiculous that it's not November, and this is where we sit and stand. It's disgraceful.
Yeah,
it's a disgrace.
It's insane. One of these years, listen, let's beat the goddamn Patriots. If for nothing else, it's Patriots.
give us
that.
Give us a moment of joy.
We don't ask for much here. You kick the Patriots while they're down. I don't care if they lose I do care if they lose every other game the rest of the year, but don't lose to the Patriots. Don't give Drake May his first win of the season. Anyway,
no, you can't do that.
Common question we got here, and it's come from a few different people. The most recent person to send it is Michael G3. Effectively, did the Jets fire Salah too early? And was this a mistake on the timing of when they did it? And would they have won one of the last two games if he was still the coach? And one of the things that Collinsworth said in the broadcast is that Ulbricht's still talking to Salah every day, which I guess isn't too weird. I don't know. It was kind of caught my ear a little bit. I kind of get the sentiment more so around the Buffalo game because they've done well against Buffalo with him, and that was like a short prep week. But they didn't lose the game because of coaching. They lost it because Greg Zuerlein couldn't make a kick and because of the flags. So I get coming off the Pittsburgh game and like the way Ulbrich handled the post-game presser being like, whoa, like this is like also a really huge problem. I'm not sure they still wouldn't have lost both those games with Salah as their head coach because they didn't lose the Bills game because of coaching. They lost because of the refs and Greg Zuerlein. The Pittsburgh game, maybe in the second half, but we haven't seen anything from Salah to think that it wouldn't have gotten away from them as well. So the time to fire Salah was in February when that Athletic leak came out. That was the time to pull the ripcord and hire Vrabel or hire someone else. Hire a more established coach, Pete Carroll. There was a window there to do it. And I don't know why it didn't happen. It could have been a money thing. It could have been a Joe Douglas thing. It could have been a Woody Johnson thing. I honestly don't know. But I really did think there was like, and maybe Dalvin just talked me into it, but there was really I thought there was like a 15 to 18% chance they were going to do something there. And they should have, because every time we had to preview the season, we'd be like, well, but the coaching.
Every time.
And sure enough, like you make that change. I think things just feel a little different. Also, even if they had just had Downing be the offensive coordinator versus Hackett, I do wonder, because he's been okay, and Hackett was just such an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah.
There was just these obvious things they should have fixed. But what do you think, CR?
I think it makes no difference now. To answer the original question, like you just kind of said, it make no difference. They wouldn't be any better if they had Salah. They're not any worse. Salah was defeated early in the season. It was wild to witness, and you feel bad for him, but you're right. It doesn't matter right now. Like they're the same exact team. Ulbrich still calls the defense. Now Downing calls the offense, which has helped the offense a little bit, although they reverted back to a lot of their static issues against the Steelers. They had a lot more motion and play action against the Bills that worked, and I don't know why they dropped that rate, but whatever. I think that Downing is definitively an upgrade over Hackett. I think
future Jets head coach Todd Downing.
I think that you're right. It was wild to me that you had players publicly clowning the offensive line coach on Instagram.
Yeah. And
when Salah didn't make a move then, I was like, oh, that staff offensively is cooked. This isn't even a hindsight thing. I've told this story before. I got slaughtered when I picked the Bills to win the division on that SMY graphic, and I responded to some people because they don't read articles or listen to us, and it's fine, that I don't think the Jets have the coaching to win the division. I actually didn't sell it enough. I didn't think they'd be this bad. And the problem, Salah couldn't hire a staff. So that's what it comes down to. And it wasn't just going to magically. I had a whole rant on postgame this year that, like, the Jets as an organization fell into savior syndrome where they thought Aaron Rodgers would come back and everything would be fixed. And Aaron Rodgers coming back makes your quarterback play better, but it doesn't make your offensive line better. It doesn't make your flow of the game coached better from an offensive play calling standpoint. It's crazy. Yeah. The Salah move, I still would do it again if that opportunity came up, because I just think that there was clear friction with him and Rodgers too. Not like violently, but just clear.
Almost violently after that touchdown against the Pats.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just, and Nolberg's obviously in over his head for that spot right now, but it doesn't change anything. It's just the Jets have a timeline issue for the last 15 years. They never get everybody on the same timeline. And Robert Salah wasn't on the same time. Clearly him and Joe Douglas, I don't know. It doesn't feel like they were ever on the same page for the most part, besides that one draft that doesn't even look that great right now. Yeah, it doesn't make a difference.
So the next question from Supreme, he was asking about Bill O'Brien, who's a prospective coaching candidate, not as a GM, where obviously he was an unmitigated disaster, but as a head coach, where, look, he had a good amount of success comparatively in Houston, when Deshaun Watson was, before everything happened with him, doing, I guess, well enough at BC this year. I'm not following it closely. Yeah. I think it's more indicative of, like, Jet fans looking for other names beyond sort of the top tier obvious candidates, because, and we could use this part to talk about sort of the general, like, head coach and GM candidate search process. And I think it's hard to name some specific people. We will here, but my main request for the Jets here is don't do the same thing that started this entire drought and was the prompt for this podcast in this era, which was a half measure. Everything that started and has led to this problem originated from the Jets' decision to fire the GM but keep the head coach after the 2012 season. They fired Tannenbaum and they kept Rex. And what that did, and listen, I've grown to respect the Rex years so much more in hindsight, to the point that,
me too.
People in our Discord are talking about, like, how do you get him back involved with the org in some way? And I'm like, kind of like him and Mancini.
My drunkest take, by the way, I meant to say this on the pod, but there just really wasn't room for it. My drunkest take is that, and I'm not saying this is what they should do, is that somehow the Jets will win enough this year that Rodgers will come back. They'll kind of run this thing back. They don't have a head coach right now.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to want the job. Nobody. And that Rex is going to coach the team for the last
WWE entrance.
It is my drunkest take that Rex Ryan will 1 year coach the New York Jets in 2025 with Rodgers. Is it not? It's so believable.
I said it is kind of. If it was anyone but the Jets, I say we're going to have a new segment. I said this on the pod on War Room every week. Both Connor and I, we're going to call them either drunk takes or WFAN takes, and we're going to give.
Yeah,
we pride ourselves
WFAN.
Here. I'm not giving, like, very hot takes, but we're fans too, and, like, we text them sometimes, and, like, that is a very hot take. But I'm telling you, I saw it in the Discord. I was like,
no, I agree.
I was watching Rex talk on ESPN, and I was like, man, wouldn't it be nice to have, like, that energy back again? Even though by the end it was a disaster, right? Now, the mistake they made was that the fact that they kept Rex and everything that Rex brought, negative along with the positive, forced them to get a third-tier GM candidate, because any GM worth his salt wasn't going to come here unless they got to pick their head coach, which makes sense. The Jets did not give that person the option. You're going to report to me. Rex is also going to report to me. That's how you end up with John Idzik, who wouldn't have been hired anywhere else. You get that mistake wrong, they both end up getting fired together. You get desperate. You give the search to Charlie Casserly. That's how you get the McCagnon years. And then, we don't need to rehash everything else. You get what happened. Don't do that again. And where the half measure would come in is that, well, one, like, keeping Joe Douglas but getting a new head coach. There's no world Joe Douglas should ever hire another head coach, period. No world. Secondarily, don't let Rodgers have any say on the next GM or the head coach. At best, he's here one more year. He should have no say on it. Even if the GM or head coach you want to hire is like, we're going to trade him because I want my own guy and we're going to start fresh. That's fine. That's because you cannot, if you're going into this new era, you have to give carte blanche beyond money because people want a chance to succeed. And you're going to have to overpay, pay the Jets tax. The Jets paid Joe Douglas well. They gave him a full 6 years and they gave Salah a full, 4.5 years. Like, they've been patient with their candidates. They've just been the wrong candidates. So don't measure it, overpay, and give the person proper carte blanche. And look, who that is on the head, GM candidates, it's a different kind of conversation. And you'll have a better feel on some of these like assistant GM, head scout type names that we'll be able to circle around in the offseason. I'm sure they'll look around all the, familiar teams that they always try to poach from. Like maybe do they bring Pete Carroll in and like a copy of the Parcells role from a long time ago? Probably not. It's not going to happen with Belichick. Don't bother bringing that up. From a coaching standpoint, Vrabel, Stefanski, if he gets fired, I like Stefanski in particular, actually more than Vrabel if they're going to roll the dice a little bit because I want the offensive upside.
Stefanski's a good coach.
I think he's a good coach. And everyone wants Ben Johnson. I get it. I don't think
he's not coming here.
I just don't even waste your time, energy, or effort.
He won't go anywhere.
Yeah, he's not going to come here in particular. No. He's like the hot new coordinator candidate. I just wonder often sometimes with him too, will he be better as a coordinator? We'll see. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, my counter take too is, and I think Ben Johnson's an amazing play caller. I don't think the Jets in any capacity could just hire a play caller and hope that all this is fit. The Jets have just such deeply rooted problems as an organization right now that the closest thing you could say to that working is when Miami hired McDaniel, and that's fizzling now.
Yeah, well, he could be a candidate too if he gets fired, which could happen. That's the names that are like McDaniel, Slovic, Johnson. God, but for the Jets, like I saw the Bill O'Brien, and it's not a bad take. I get
no,
he's that kind of thing. Yeah. But I started to think, I'm like, man, what kind of candidates are the Jets going to interview? It's going to be like Bill O'Brien, Vance Joseph. And then I was like, as I started to go down like the darker path, I was like, what are the most ridiculous names they're going to like throw out there? It's going to be like, someone's going to bring up Bill Cowher again, even though he's like 100 years old, because Cowher always has to get brought up.
What do you think
will get brought up?
What do you think Bill O'Brien's record was in those 7 years with the Texans? Well, you don't have to give me. Let me give you the amount of games. He coached exactly 100 games.
I would say 63 and 37.
Oh, wow. Okay. He was 52 and 48, but that's still better than I thought because he was
500.
He was 9-7, 9-7, 9-7, 4-12, 11-5, 10-6, and then he started off 0-4 and got fired. But I mean, I'm not sitting here and saying hire Bill O'Brien, but I'm sure when a lot of people heard you read that question, they're like, "What?" Bill O'Brien's a good football coach. That might be the pool the Jets are playing in. I mean, let's be real here.
Underdog fantasy back for basketball season, still rolling in football season. Promo code Badlands works no matter what the sport is. Both Connor and I are Knicks fans. We're going to mix that in with some of our Jets picks. We'll see that out there. Promo code Badlands. Get a deposit match. Take advantage of their new profit boosts that are rolling. CR, how are we feeling about our Knicks this year? A little, what are we thinking? We excited?
It's the best I've felt in my life. Literally, the best I've felt in watching the Knicks in my entire life. And what's better than this right now, Joe? We could do the Garden pick'ems. We could do Rangers goal overs. We could do Jalen Brunson point overs, and then we'll sprinkle in Breece Hall receptions or something that could maybe we
Greg Zuerlein under kicks.
Greg Zuerlein under field goals made. Yes. Can't wait. Basketball season is here, and it just makes playing pick'ems that much better on Underdog.
Sign up with code Badlands, Underdog Fantasy. My other WFA. Can we reach out to Saban? Can we reach out to Gruden? Maybe pull Greg Schiano.
Oh God, the Gruden conspiracies are going to be just like
God. Yeah, and look, we'll do a bigger one on some of the GM candidates. GMs, it's like that's a much more nuanced conversation. And how do you avoid the mistake? Like with Idzik, it was like they got the accountant after like the errors of Tannenbaum. With McCagnon, they got the scout. Douglas was supposed to kind of meld the two, but he never really was that. So like how you look for background will be interesting there. But again, how do you have more of that program builder? And Bill Parcells don't grow on trees, right? Like he's a Hall of Famer, he's a generational guy. Like it doesn't happen that way. Carroll's the only guy who remotely fits that profile, and even he's not Parcells, but It'll be interesting. It'll definitely be interesting.
Carroll has the balls that if you hire him in this, call it like the football czar role, right? Or like whatever you want to say it is, like this overlord of the whole organization.
Yeah.
He can come in and you could say something to him that's stupid and he'll be like, yeah, that's stupid. We're not doing that. Like he has the clout, you know what I mean? To kind of,
he would also, I feel like he would also vibe with Rodgers for 1 year and be like, then we can move on to someone else. A couple of guys.
Without a doubt. There's so many funny outcomes. There's this scenario where the Giants fire Dable. And
he'd be a candidate, definitely.
Dable would not only be a candidate, but say his market's not that hot, and then he has to take an OC job, but he doesn't want to move. So like Rex is coaching the Jets for 1 year, and Dable's the OC. Dude. Or Carroll coaches the Jets for 1 year, and Dable's the OC, and then it's going to be one of those situations where whenever the person
back in the front office in this one
of the person retires, and then Dable's the coach of the Jets. Oh my God!
How are we here? How can this happen? How can this happen?
We're not being.
We should be talking about